Alright, we are here in beautiful sunny Florida, and today, people, we are breaking down the Ultimate Fighter 24 finale, Demetrious Johnson versus Tim Elliott for the Flyweight Championship of the World. And obviously, Tim Elliott winning the Ultimate Fighter to earn himself this shot, and I picked Tim Elliott to win this season before it even started. Tim Elliott, very good fighter. Disagree completely with the UFC when they cut him. Sure, he went 2-4, but man, those four guys he lost to: John Dodson, Ali Bago-Utinov, Zach McCoskey, Joseph Benavidez, four very good top 10 fighters. So Tim Elliott, very very good fighter there. Unfortunately, he's getting his second chance, and he is fighting the very best fighter in the world, the champ, Demetrious Johnson. I do not give Tim Elliott much of a chance here at all. But we will get into that at the end. Of course, we are going to be breaking down this entire 12-fight card. And before we get into that, anything to get into with you guys? I hit 500 Twitter followers, so thank you very much. That is much appreciated. If you're not following me on Twitter, what are you doing? Follow me on Twitter. Hit me up. Let's talk some fights. You can find me at MMAKelton. Of course, subscribe to the channel. Like this video. Likes on the videos mean very, very much to me. It just takes 2 seconds of your day, so that is much appreciated. But let's get into these fights, man. First fight of the night, and I'm going to try to get through these lower level fights very quickly because there's a couple of fights I really want to get into, man. First up, we got Josh Stansbury minus 115 taking on Devin Clark minus 105. I was originally, my gut pick was Stansbury just to grind out Clark and work his submission game, but after tape study, I am going to go with Devin Clark here. He's a little outsized, but he's got a big speed advantage here. He's already a way better athlete with big time explosiveness. We saw Josh Stansbury's Ultimate Fighter fight against Khalil Roundtree, super similar to this fight in that Khalil is also a guy that could make 185 but fights at 205, and Khalil completely outsped Stansbury and put him away with his sharp striking. And Devin Clark is much more athletic and sharper striker than Khalil Roundtree, so I like Devin Clark to completely negate Stansbury's key to victory, which is taking him down and working his sub game. I like Devin Clark to stop the takedowns and starch Josh Stansbury. I like Devin Clark to find that big old chin of Josh Stansbury and get that first round TKO. When it comes to betting, I would personally stay away from this fight. But moving on. Fight Pass prelim, we got Fight Pass headliner, we got Anthony Smith minus 120 taking on Elvis Mutapcic plus 100. So this is a pretty bottom of the barrel middleweight matchup here, where the loser most likely is going to get cut. Elvis Mutapcic had that draw against Kevin Casey last out. He clearly lost the first two rounds, clearly won the third. I scored the third round at 10-9. Most people did. Some people scored it at 10-8. Obviously the judges did, but either way, man, to go out there and lose 2 rounds to a very low-level guy in Casey shows how low-level Elvis Mutapcic is. And Anthony Smith, he's not much better, but he's coming off a loss to Cesar Ferreira. That is his first loss in quite a while, but we saw in Caesar's last fight against Hermanson how really great Caesar is coming along. So I give Anthony Smith credit for surviving all 3 rounds there. And when it comes to this fight, though, Anthony Smith, he's the much bigger fighter here. He's got the big reach advantage. Elvis, he's slightly sharper on the feet with a little bit more power, but I like Anthony Smith to use that reach advantage and utilize takedowns and work a ground game on Elvis. I think that's Anthony Smith's key to victory here, and I am picking Anthony Smith via a 29-28 decision. When it comes to betting on this fight, I would stay away from betting on either guy, but I do have a play on the over 1.5 rounds. I do have that in a parlay. Only way I see this going under 1.5 minutes is, or 1.5 rounds, is Elvis Mutapcic to get that early KO, but I think that's pretty unlikely with Anthony Smith going to get this fight to the ground and use his big reach advantage there. So I do like a play on the over. But moving on, first fight of the FS1 prelims, Kylan Curran minus 150 taking on Jamie Moyle plus 130. This is a very, very tough fight to call. I switched my pick a few times. Kylan, her biggest advantage here is that she actually has the UFC experience and has fought better fighters. You know, she's been in there with the Paige Van Zandts, the Felice Herrigs. She's also got a slight striking advantage, but a finish on the feet for her is close to none. Jamie Moyle has a big ground advantage, and Curran has been shown to be very open to submissions lately. I don't know if that's something she could pick or fix. So, Jamie Moyle, her opportunity for a submission is a lot more likely than Kylan Curran's chances for a knockout. So the way I see this going, I see both ladies being very aggressive here, which I think most of those clinch exchanges, it's going to end up on the ground. And I like Jamie Moyle to grind out Kylan Curran on the ground here, maybe get a submission. If there's any bet I made on this card that I slightly regret, it's the over 2.5 rounds. I could see Jamie Moyle pulling out a submission here, but I think it's more than likely that she just grinds out Kylan Curran on the ground here. My official pick is Jamie Moyle, 30-27 decision. Obviously, picking Jamie Moyle, she's at plus 130, but it's just not enough for me. If it gets to plus 140, I might take a half unit stab on her. I already have so many units riding on this card. I will get into that at the end, but picking betting on Jamie Moyle in her UFC debut is something that I maybe probably want to stay away from. So I would stay away from this fight, and I would stay away from the over or the under also. Moving on, we got Brendan O'Reilly plus 105 taking on Dong Hyun Kim minus 125. This is a pretty bad fight here. However, this is a very close fight and has the ingredients to be a very fun fight. Brendan O'Reilly is coming back down to 155 after the beating he took from Alan Jouban, and Dong Hyun Kim coming back from that war against Polo Reyes. So a lot of question marks in this fight. So when it comes to betting, I would stay away from this fight as well. But when it comes to it, Dong Kim, he's a striker. O'Reilly is a submission wrestler. So I would say that Kim is the more well-rounded fighter. He's actually got a pretty decent judo game in his arsenal, which may help him stuff takedowns or reverse takedowns and get into a dominant position of his own on Brendan O'Reilly. But on the feet, I would give Kim a pretty good striking advantage there too. A knockout is possible, but it's a very close fight to call because I could see Brendan O'Reilly just grinding him out for 3 rounds. It is hard to pick a guy that's 0-2 in the UFC, but I will pick Dong Kim to reverse and stuff takedowns and eat up Brendan O'Reilly on the feet. Official pick, Dong Kim, 29-28 decision, and like I said, I would stay away from this fight betting-wise. Moving on, a fight I am very, very excited to talk about. Rob Font minus 250 taking on Matt Schnell plus 210. So this fight excites me. It has me interested a lot, man. I'm very high on both these guys. I think they both have very, very bright futures. You know, when I went into tape study, I was looking for little things to give me some extra reason to bet on Rob Font. And, you know, after tape study, I am picking Matt Danger Schnell to pull off the upset here and win this fight. So, I'll talk to you guys about a few things here. There is a lot of things going for Matt Schnell in this fight besides the actual stylistical matchup itself. Rob Font, he has had 3 different opponents to train for in the last 2 months, which historically has proven to hurt guys. I'm not saying it'll hurt Rob Font. I'm not saying it won't hurt Rob Font, but it has historically proven to hurt guys in the past. Matt Schnell, he's a very tough guy to prepare for, even with a full camp. Presents a very strange style, hard style to prepare for. The short notice, I think it helps Matt Schnell. I think it's good for him. You know, Schnell's a very young, hungry guy who takes no days off at the gym, so you know he's more than ready for this short notice opportunity, especially training an American top team. It's another thing, he's got a very big gym advantage. He trains at ATT. Rob Font, I'm not sure the name of the gym he trains at, but I know it's in Boston. Another thing, if you think Schnell is going to be outsized because he's coming up from 125, you are wrong, man. Both guys are the same height. Matt Schnell actually possesses a reach advantage. Rob Font, maybe he's a little thicker than Matt Schnell, but man, I'm amazed that Matt Schnell can make 125, man. His young body, I could see how he made it a few years ago when he wasn't as thick as he was now, but I don't know how he still makes it, but he's filling out, and he's looking much bigger, and I think 135 will be his future home. It's very comfortable for him to make that. He's gonna be feeling really good in there, really loose after not cutting that extra 10 pounds. But lastly, Matt Schnell has been the much more active active fighter over these last couple years, man. I know that's not Rob Font's fault, but he's only had like 3 fights in the past 2.5 years or something like that. Matt Schnell, I believe this is his 3rd or 4th fight of the year, and when it comes to how this fight plays out, I think Matt Schnell, he has a big wrestling and jiu-jitsu advantage if he chooses to put it there. Maybe he does. I think he's going to go in there and strike with Rob Font and prove a point. And when it comes to the striking, I think Rob Font is the slightly sharper striker, and I would give him the fact that he probably uses his reach a little bit better than Schnell. But Schnell is a much more active striker, puts forth more pressure, and has way more power. Like I said, he's going to be feeling a lot more loose and flowy in there after not cutting the weight. Font still has to cut a lot of weight. It's a tough weight cut for Font. And I think Matt Schnell is going to go out there and land a bomb on Rob Font. Now, I have seen a few people say, oh, Rob Font went in there and survived 3 rounds to John Lineker. No way, Matt Schnell knocks him out. Man, Matt Schnell and John Lineker are very 2 different striking styles. John Lineker slowly stalks guys down and waits for the big opportunity to hit that big bomb. Matt Schnell will go in there and aggressively bull rush you and just force you to the cage and beat you up against the cage, man. Matt Schnell is very, very aggressive there, and I like him. I like his chances to rock Rob Font on the feet. Get him down to the ground, show off his amazing jiu-jitsu, and tap out Rob Font. My official pick is a very bold one. Matt Schnell, 1st round submission. And obviously when it comes to betting, I would completely recommend a bet on Matt Schnell. And I will get into how many units I have on him at the end. So stay tuned for that. But moving on, we got quite the weird fight here. Got Gray Maynard minus 115 taking on Ryan Hall minus 105. And man, if this was prime Gray Maynard, I would be picking him all day long. But man, he is really shot, like really badly. One of the biggest falls from grace I can recall in MMA. You can clearly see that Gray doesn't have the athleticism and speed he once had. And I really hate the idea of him destroying his body even more at 145, man. All the injuries that this guy has compiled over the years, he's just so stiff and slow and can barely do anything out there anymore. I wish he would have retired after his last win. Even his last win against Fernando Bruno. Fernando Bruno is so low level, and Maynard barely got the win out of there. But man, for a fighter being on his last legs, I think it's a really bad thing against a guy like Ryan Hall, who's in his athletic prime and just a guy that's so super dangerous in one aspect of the fight game. And I think Ryan Hall, he's so dangerous with submissions from any position on the ground, in the clinch, and even striking. You know, he can go for those Eminari rolls, catch Gray Maynard. He can grab Gray Maynard's back from weird positions on the feet. Between Gray Maynard's wrestling and Hall's jiu-jitsu, I see this fight almost entirely being on the ground. Even if Gray Maynard decides to use his wrestling as defense and try to keep it standing, I think Ryan Hall, the wizard that he is going to find a way to get it on the ground and eventually take the back of Gray Maynard. Gray Maynard gave up his back and put himself into many bad positions against Fernando Bruno. Fernando Bruno just wasn't good enough to take advantage of that. Ryan Hall is going to take advantage of that, and my official pick is Ryan Hall via a 1st round submission, and I have 2 units on him at plus 100. So moving on. First fight of the main card, we got Brandon Moreno minus 125 taking on Ryan Benoit plus 105. And man, this fight has the makings to be fireworks. Brandon Moreno comes out like a wild man in that 1st round, and you know, he's not just a wild man, he's got some decent skills to go along with it. I wouldn't call the Luis Smolka win a fluke necessarily, but I would categorize it with the Bisping Rockhold upset in the way that Smolka and Rockhold were just way too cocky, felt like they couldn't get touched in there, and they just go out and get destroyed. And I would absolutely bet on Luis Smolka in a rematch with Brandon Moreno. And you know, Ryan Benoit, he has bombs for the 125-pound division. One does not simply knock out a Pettis brother. Ryan Benoit is actually the only man in the world who has knocked out a Pettis brother. And man, Brandon Moreno, for him to want to go out there and get into a war with Ryan Benoit, that is a very risky business. I can see Ryan Benoit just knocking out Brandon Moreno early, and Man, even if Brandon Moreno wants to take the fight to the ground and show off his jiu-jitsu like he did in the last fight, I think Ryan Benoit, he has great wrestling, man. He can stuff takedowns. He took down Sergio Pettis, and I believe he even took down Freddie Serrano at one point. We all know how high of a level Freddie Serrano's wrestling is, so impressive stuff from Benoit. Very well-rounded fighter there, and at this point in their careers, I just think Benoit is a much more sharper fighter. Brandon Moreno is still very green in some areas, and Ryan Benoit has fought the much better competition, man. So I'm going to go with Ryan Benoit via a 30-27 decision. And obviously, as an underdog, I would recommend a bet on Ryan Benoit. Moving on. We got Sarah McMann minus 180 taking on Alexis Davis plus 158. So this is kind of a weird matchup here. I'm not really too excited about this fight at all. I think both these women are very past their prime days here. I wish Sarah McMann would have gotten into MMA at an earlier part in life. Obviously, we know how much of a high-level Olympic wrestling game she has, but man, I don't know how she has to play it very safe if she wants to use that wrestling, because Alexis Davis is really good on the ground. Big jiu-jitsu advantage. We saw her catch Sarah Kaufman in that triangle to armbar in her last fight, but Alexis Davis has been out for a very long time, man. She just had a kid, and we know how that turns out when you come back from a pregnancy. We saw how it turned out for Milana Dudieva a couple weeks ago, just got destroyed. And Sarah McMann is the much stronger, meaner fighter here, and I like Sarah McMann to win this fight in the striking and the wrestling game, honestly, man. I like Sarah McMann here a lot. I don't think she can go out there and finish Alexis Davis, but I think the majority of this fight will be her looking for nice, safe, calculated takedowns, not getting into any triangle armbar bullshit like Davis got against Kaufman. But Sarah McMann, her striking has come a long way too. It gets sharper every single fight. All she did was strike with Jessica Eye, and she won. She won striking with Jessica Eye, and she also showed very big power by knocking down Miesha Tate in that fight too. So Alexis Davis with the layoff, coming back from her pregnancy, I like Sarah McMann here a lot. 30-27 decision. Sarah McMann is my pick, and I have 1.1 units on Sarah McMann to win via decision at minus 110. Moving on, very fun, decent prospect matchup here at light heavyweight. We got Ion Cutelaba minus 225 taking on Jared Cannonier plus 185. Cannonier 1-0 at light heavyweight. He looked good in his light heavyweight debut, but it was against a very bad Cyril Asker. Just went out there and destroyed him. Cyril Asker had nothing for him, but Cutelaba has shown a granite chin in the UFC, and so I think a Cannonier KO is very unlikely here. And if Cannonier is going to win, he's got to show off better footwork and outstrike Cutelaba for 3 rounds, and I find that unlikely, man. Cutelaba is going to put on a pace on Jared Cannonier that I think it's going to slow down Jared Cannonier, and his cardio is not going to look as good as it has in the past, but I don't think it gets there, man. I like Cutelaba to find that chin early. I think Cutelaba is going to aggressively come towards Cannonier. Cannonier is going to hit him with a big shot. Cutelaba is going to eat it up, and he is going to lure Cannonier into a war like he did with the last 2 guys he fought, and Ian is going to land that big shot. My official pick is Ion Cutelaba via a first-round KO. Cannonier, he got knocked out by Sean Jordan. I know Sean Jordan's a much bigger guy, but I would say pound for pound, Cutelaba punches way harder than Sean Jordan. Cutelaba has bombs in his hand, man. When it comes to betting, I'd say minus 225 is too much to pay for Cutelaba, and I don't really want to take the shot on Cannonier, and I wouldn't take a shot on the over or the under here, so I would just recommend staying away from that fight. But moving on, we got the top 3 fights here, very good fights. We got Jake Ellenberger plus 220 taking on Jorge Masvidal minus 260. Man, I'm a big fan of Jake Ellenberger. Have been for a few years now. I cashed in on him against Matt Brown, but I love this fight for Masvidal a lot, man. Credit to Jake Ellenberger for getting the job done against Matt Brown, but you can tell he really doesn't have it in him anymore, man. As soon as Matt Brown survived that first flurry of strikes, Jake Ellenberger really started to slow down, and he was getting pieced up by Matt Brown. It looked like Matt Brown was about to get a first-round finish of his own, but then Jake landed that perfect body kick, and Masvidal. This is a horrible matchup for Ellenberger. Masvidal is still very sharp in his prime, not fading like Matt Brown was. A really good matchup for Jorge. He's one of the best defensive strikers in the game and defensive wrestlers in the game, and those are really only Jake's two ways to win, man. To land that big overhand or out wrestle Masvidal. I think Masvidal stuffs takedowns, avoids the big shot, keeps it a boxing match, and he is going to light Jake Ellenberger up for 3 rounds. My official pick is, or not 3 rounds, but I think he's going to light Jake Ellenberger up. My official pick is Jorge Masvidal via a second round TKO. He's just going to wear Jake Ellenberger out and just destroy him, man. I just don't think Jake Ellenberger can hang in the boxing department with Masvidal. Masvidal is an excellent boxer, and Masvidal is really sick of letting these fights go to the scorecard, so he's going to make a statement here. So moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we've got Joseph Benavidez minus 190 taking on Henry Cejudo plus 165. Man, this is a really high-level flyweight fight here. I'm really excited for it, man, but not so sure Cejudo is ready for these top 3 guys yet, man. Joseph Benavidez, he's one of my favorite guys in the UFC just for the fact that he doesn't get nearly enough respect that he deserves. In my opinion, he is top 15 pound for pound. He has really dominated everybody he fought his whole career, except Dominic Cruz and Demetrius Johnson, but those guys are both top 5 pound for pound fighters in the world. Henry Cejudo, I was very high on him before the DJ fight. I still am, but he's just so young in MMA. He's unexperienced. Showed against DJ that he's just not at the elite level yet, or he just doesn't have the elite level experience. And, it could still happen for Henry Cejudo. I'm not writing him off by any means, but I just think Benavidez is going to be too much for Henry Cejudo here, especially in the striking department. Cejudo has the wrestling advantage, but I don't know if he really has the MMA wrestling advantage, and that's really the only advantage he has is the wrestling. The clinch, I think Benavidez has a very big clinch advantage here. Henry Cejudo, obviously Demetrius Johnson has a very good clinch, but Henry Cejudo just showed that he has a very bad clinch. That's why that went so horribly for him in that DJ fight, but man, that like I said, the wrestling, he hasn't really shown how to fit his wrestling game into MMA yet. He hasn't really found a way to translate it into his game, but Henry has carved out a nice striking game to defeat lower level fighters, but Benavidez massively can outwork him on the feet here and most likely stuff takedowns. I like just Benavidez to outwork Cejudo here for 3 rounds and just look like the much more elite fighter. So I like Joseph Benavidez via a 30-27 decision here, and I do have a bet on Joseph Benavidez, 1.4 units on Benavidez via, 1 unit on Benavidez via decision at plus 140. So moving on to the main event here, we got Demetrius Johnson minus 950 taking on Tim Elliott plus 625. So, I'm actually a big fan of Tim Elliott, and I have been for a while. Like I said, I disagreed a lot when the UFC cut him, because he really only lost to monsters. But, Tim, he does have some very admirable attributes, such as his wild style, throwing guys off a lot of times, very unorthodox fighter. He's got sneaky good jiu-jitsu, he's very fast, but these things won't be enough and really mean nothing against Demetrius Johnson. Demetrius Johnson is just... he's the perfect fighter. It's hard to just pinpoint one thing he's so good at because he's so good at everything, man. I think Joe Rogan has said it before. I say it too. If you were to build an artificial fighter, like a robot, and have him be perfect at every aspect of the fight game, that fighter would be very similar to Mighty Mouse. And this is truly going to be a terrible and frustrating time for Tim Elliott. He may come out strong and go wild on Mighty Mouse on the feet and have a good 2 minutes, but the second Mighty Mouse figures him out, it is game over. Tim Elliott gets hit a lot, and Mighty Mouse is going to kill him on the feet. I like Demetrius Johnson via a TKO in the early first round, late second, or late first round, early second. But my official pick is Demetrius Johnson, early second round TKO, and I will go over my bets here. I do have 9 plays this weekend. I will save the two biggest ones I have for last year, but I do have 2 units on Ryan Hall to win 2 units, 1.5 units on Matt Schnell to win 2.4, 1 unit Ryan Benoit to win 1.3, 1.1 on Sarah McMann via decision to win 1 unit on Benavidez via decision to win 1.4, 1 unit unit on Benavidez and the Kylan Curran over 2.5 to win 1.3. And 1 unit on Benavidez over 2.5 paired with the Elvis Mutapcic over 1.5 to win 1.2. And the 2 very high unit bets I have here, I have 4 units on Jorge Masvidal at minus 195 to win 2 units. And I have 5 units on the Demetrius Johnson, Tim Elliott under 4.5 to win 5 units. Reasoning behind that is pretty simple, man. I do not think Tim Elliott can be in the cage with Demetrius Johnson for over 22.5 minutes, man. Demetrius Johnson is going to figure him out, and there's no way Tim Elliott can survive, man. Even if Tim Elliott survives the early flurry and survives the first 2 rounds, Demetrius Johnson has a very big cardio advantage. He will get the finish in that 3rd or 4th round, and I love this bet on the under 4.5 rounds because it really ensures me of the only possible way Tim Elliott wins this fight, and that is a miracle submission. So, that is probably my favorite bet that I've made in my year of doing this, that 5 units on the Johnson Elliott under 4.5 rounds at plus 100. But that is going to do it for me, guys. This is much longer than I thought it would be, but I talked about that Matt Schnell Rob Font fight for a long time because I've been saying on Twitter I wanted to discuss that fight for a while. But that is going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate the living hell out of you. Like I said, like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter at MMAKelton. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy the fights.